You are Locked On Vikings Postcast, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome in, Vikings fans, to another victory celebration here on the Locked On Vikings Postcast. The Vikings go to 14-2, mostly kicking the crap out of the Packers until the end. It got a little weird, but you know what? 27-25, a win is a win. Here with Ron Johnson and Arif Hasan, filling in for Sam and Luke, who both couldn't make it today, and I'm filling in as the host, so you're stuck with me. So welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out, and thank you so much for making the Locked On Vikings Postcast your first listen after the game. I'll start this the way that Luke always starts it, which is just give me your very first rapid reaction headline thought. Ron, we'll start with you.
It looked like it was about to be a blowout. I'm not gonna lie. It got a little boring at one point when it was, I think it was 20-3 or something like that. And so around that time, I was like, oh, this is about to go bad. Like America, they kept flashing America's game of the week in the stadium. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, this is not America's game of the week. And then like the script writers, it felt like they were like, hey guys, we're going to let you win, but can you make it a little bit more interesting? Because we have a lot of fans watching this game and we made this the game of the week. And so the script started to play itself out. But, you know, the Vikings offense got a little stagnant. Aaron Jones went out. I don't know, there was no anything about why he was out, you know, if it was just resting because the game was out of hand at one point. Maybe I don't know. We'll see, you know, Tuesday or Wednesday, whenever we get the injury report of what possibly could be wrong with Aaron Jones. Or was it literally just, hey, Akers, I felt like he was a better guy for the situations we had coming up, and they went that way. But my immediate was started out a complete blowout, came back to the pack, but the Vikings offense showing that they could put up points on this Packers defense, and the Vikings defense for most of the game shutting down Jordan Love, this is a team that had scored, and they almost scored. I mean, they got 25 points. They had scored over 30 points in the last 3 games. So the way they handled them, the way they, took care of business, for me, it was cool to see Brian Flores, dialing up some different looks too. Cause, I don't know if it was just, let me put this on film so the Lions have more to deal with this week. But it was cool to see some, just the 2 down, 3 or 4 guys roaming around. And then of course Dallas Turner getting another sack, so that's always good.
Yeah, I mean, my first thought is the Vikings are doing it, man. This is awesome.
They're doing the thing.
They're doing the thing, right? A 14 team. Obviously, many people consider the Packers to be a pretty good team. The data suggests that they are a good team. The Vikings, for the most part, were beating the crap out of a very good team for most of the game. Obviously, what had happened at the end, not that great. Vikings do need to tighten down on that. What was interesting is I thought, hey, maybe they're kind of turning around because they did tighten down at the end of the half, right? When they stopped the Packers from driving.
They recovered the muff punt this time. That's improvement.
Right. Yeah. Right.
This is the exact same game. It's insane.
It's crazy, right? And then, of course, at the end of this game, they still have some 2-minute problems, so that needs to be resolved. But for the most part, good team doing good things. 17-point lead in the fourth quarter. That's a good place to be. You got to tighten up some gears. Make sure that you've got everything operating. But hey, it's just tough for me to complain too much about beating the Packers twice in a season. That's nice.
It's one of those where you feel right coming off of it because we are so predisposed to expect the worst thing to happen, and then it almost does, and we're very negative coming off of these, and then you sleep on it, and then you wake up and you go, oh, actually they played pretty good there and definitely deserved to win more than the Packers did. But I guess when it comes to, because this has now happened twice versus the Packers, happened against the Bears, it happened a little bit in other games where the Vikings have sprung out to these great leads, taken them deep into the second half, and then given up some kind of comeback effort. They've always fallen short. So why is it exactly the same is my question to you guys. Why is it that the other team can always come back, but then the second it gets back to within 1 score and it gets real, that's when the Vikings tighten down? Is there something specific you can pin that on, or is it more esoteric, Ron?
The Illuminati. I'm going to go with...
Okay. So a very concrete and real thing. Got it.
Right, of course.
Yeah, no. So honestly, I mean, I do feel like when teams get big leads, they tend to take the foot off the pedal. and that happens. That's nature sometimes. Now there are teams that when you're down, they're going to keep stomping you and putting you into the ground. But again, it's always, I say every game, there's a learning lesson to be learned. And this one is, we can't take our foot off the pedal. If I'm Brian Flores, if I'm Kevin O'Connell, and I'm like, hey, we have a big lead on the Lions, or we have a big, because they're starting out every game. But if you think about the early part, the first 10 games or something like that, they started out great in every game, just about. It felt like they were putting their foot on a lot of people's throats, or the first five for sure. I remember that. And this is what this team can do. They can score in bunches early. But what happens is the other team playing comeback football starts to get more aggressive. They start throwing the ball a little bit more. They start going after it a little bit more. So I think it's just the natural attrition of how the game is going in the score. But at the end of the day, the fact that they can tighten up, as you say, that's got to be good. Because imagine if we were sitting here talking about a 28-27. Vikings all of a sudden don't get it. Packers
and they collapse, and it finally happened. They've been exposed. Yeah.
Yep. Kick a field goal. Then we got to listen to Peter Bukowski talk about how much of a fraud this team is, and so on and so forth. And honestly, what better game for Sam Darnold to put up 441 yards of offense against the Packers and Jordan Love struggled the way he struggled. When you look at, and even third downs, they were converting them, and the Packers still couldn't move the ball after that. So I love the fact that the way this played out, how everybody kept saying Sam Darnold's not better than Jordan Love. Sam Darnold's not an MVP caliber. He's not a Pro Bowl quarterback. You're lying to yourself if you say that. Like, you are literally just going with the national narrative of, oh, well, it's Sam Darnold and eventually the other shoe's going to drop. It hasn't dropped. He's gotten a guy in Kevin O'Connell that has done what we're seeing, which is unlock a great quarterback.
Yeah, we'll talk more about Darnold later, but Arif, what do you think about this weird comeback trend?
Yeah, I think some of it might just be the way that, offenses have to change the way that they call plays, what route concepts that they have put out there. And this is just speculation. I haven't really locked into looking at this in more detail. But my guess is something like that, where the offenses have a particular set of route concepts or combinations, the way that they call plays, the tempo that they use in those situations, in comeback situations where you have to throw the ball more, you're more likely to push the ball downfield, those kinds of things, and how it lines up against the Vikings defense. I think a lot of times when this is happening, I get a bunch of tweets that are like, oh my God, the Vikings are in prevent defense. They shouldn't be doing this. Mm-hmm. And that actually happening a lot less, I think, than people are saying. I don't think they're
It's drop eight. Defense. It's not prevent, as you would call it, but it's their drop eight coverages, which have just been bad.
Exactly. And I think that the way that those drop eight coverages align against the most common route concepts that you see in these 2-minute offenses, I think it's just a bad mismatch for the Vikings, the way that those coverages and those routes combine with each other. I think that's probably it. I haven't tested this. I haven't looked at it too deeply, but I think that makes the most sense because of how consistently it happens, how it happens against every kind of team and every kind of offense. Certainly, the Vikings do need to lock in and focus in these moments. I think that that's part of it, but I think that structurally there's probably an issue here where when the Vikings are in this situation, that what they're attempting to do doesn't work. Because if you look at their drop eight stuff outside of 2-minute, it's killer. It's extremely good. So
it's when they can't disguise it with all the pre-snap stuff because the other offense is in a hurry, and then they just kind of have to play it straight up, and then you just have a 3-man rush, and those rushers are like Jonathan Bullard and Harrison Phillips, and it's like, they're just going to find somebody eventually in that zone coverage.
They got time.
But I also want to make sure we do get some time to talk about Sam Darnold. A little bit, kind of a funky day for Will Reichard with a couple of misses. A lot yet to get to here on the Locked On Vikings postcast. This episode of the Locked On Vikings postcast is brought to you by Rocket Money. Rocket Money is the perfect way to get your spending under control. Look, it happens to all of us. We subscribe to a million things. We forget we're subscribed to them, and then suddenly they're charging us for years and years and years, and we don't know we could be saving that money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, and it helps you monitor your spending, lower your bills, and help you figure out where you can cut back. Brings everything together in one place, whether it's your subscriptions, your spending habits, or even just financial goals that you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Moving right along here. Thank you so much for coming in and tuning in. Thank you, all of you. There are so many people here. I appreciate you all so very much. If you want to come catch the postcast live, you can catch it, of course, on Locked On Minnesota Sports, or if you miss it, you can always listen to the audio later on the Locked On Vikings podcast feed. So a very, very good day for Darnold, save the one interception that kind of felt like it sparked that comeback. It's a little greedy on a corner route, but otherwise, Sam Darnold came in and outdueled Jordan Love. And it's the second time this year that this has happened. And it's like the umpteenth time this year that Darnold has come in against a quarterback that's supposed to be better than him and shown that that's not true.
Yeah. And I was gonna say that the one thing about Jordan Love is I was high up on him. I'm not gonna lie. Like, we on the pregame show, I was the only person that thought, and again, my dumb self, that Jordan Love would throw and run. And I put the run in there because I thought he would scramble a little bit more, and because he doesn't take sacks. Like, he gets out of the pocket a lot. If he's not there, he runs the ball. He couldn't do anything today. Like, it felt like he was nervous, felt like he was scared, felt like at times when he would get out the pocket, like he usually has a secondary thought. He didn't have it. I don't know if Christian Watson being out like hurt it a little bit, but it something felt off with him. Like, it didn't feel like he was the guy I watched on film for the last 2 or 3 weeks. Even when I broke down his third downs on the pregame show, a lot of the throws he were making were great. The receivers were dropping the ball. They were fifth in the league with 30 drops this season, which is crazy to think how many times they dropped the ball. And people are always like, oh, what about the Vikings? Vikings have only dropped 16 from their receivers and their tight ends. And so and a couple of those, like Aaron Jones's, that was in the rain. I mean, I'm not going to make excuses, but some of those drops were in the rain. But when you look at this Packers team, for me, that one, but then Sam Darnold, you can't lie what you see. What you see is what you're getting, and he's just making plays. Like the throw, it came back, but the one-hander by Justin Jefferson, like if you want to see a bunch of drunk people go crazy, like I wish they could show a 360 of the fans when JJ made that one-handed catch, because I think half the people are probably like, what was that? Like, did that really just happen?
The one that got called back?
Cam Robinson, Cam Robinson with the hole. But it's one of those plays that, like, because like in the suite, you're not allowed to make noise. And everybody knows that. Like, we're supposed to be impartial journalists and film people and TV people. But it's amazing to watch, to look around when something like that happens and everybody's like, oh, what that's the play of the year. And then Cam Robinson with the hold. So, I just think Sam Darnold is trusting his players. And Tom Brady, I got a chance to see his aura because, when he walks by places, he just has an aura around him like Prince. When you hear him
talk glows. That's the avocados.
The avocado tequila. When he talks about Sam Darnold and some of the stuff he was saying, like just listening to him, it's cool like to listen to his halftime breakdown of it. Sam Darnold like knows where he's going with the ball. Like there's no indecisiveness, and I think that's the other key of why he's been so good.
Darnold has
real
been...
quick, Arif. I just want to address this from Gabriel. Did we get a turnover celebration? There was one. Fox cut away from it. If you were at the game, Fox cut away from the turnover celebration. It was High School Musical. Just wanted to get that out there.
Go ahead, we did get some reporters from the press box who were at the game that reported back that it was High School Musical. Once again, I think Fox has done a really poor job managing replay. Example of that.
Yeah.
I thought, the fourth down one too. I thought that Josh Metellus was going to get one on the fourth down. If you saw how many pumps he had, like he put up.
Yeah, right. That was great. Yeah.
Towing the line.
He only did like 1 or 2 pumps, but I could see the ref. You could see the ref looking like, wait, are you going to do it again? And he stopped. So I was like, okay, 2 pump limit.
Yeah. No, I mean, Darnold was great. Even on the pick, like it was greedy, but like he also was hit as he was throwing it. So I'm not going to be that upset with it. And when you end up with like an over 110 passer rating for the day, even as you throw a pick, I mean, that's an outstanding day.
Yeah. Some just ropes in there, man. Oh my God. Some highlights.
Throws. Yeah. Just incredible throws. And the thing that you really appreciate with Sam Darnold, especially after all this time watching Kirk Cousins, is how escapable his play is, like how he gets out of pressure situations. Because both in the Kevin O'Connell offense, you hold on to the ball a lot. Both Kirk Cousins and Sam Darnold held on to the ball a ton. Brady, not a fan of Sam Darnold holding on to the ball so much, but that is a feature of the offense. We actually learned a little bit more as we've gotten a couple more reports on how the offense operates over the past couple of weeks. That some of it is just because there's a sandbox style approach to the way that Jefferson and Addison run routes that you kind of do just have to wait a little bit. That's going to invite pressure. And when you've got somebody like Darnold back there who has the ability to get out of pressure. I mean, he's not like the fastest quarterback, but he's got a pretty good sense of what's happening in the pocket, which is such like a shift from his reputation 3-4 years ago. But he's got a great sense of everything that's happening in the pocket. And he has like just enough contact balance to get out of a lot of this stuff, just enough athleticism to get out of this stuff. And then he can reset and throw the ball. And he's got just a ridiculous arm, right? And so that allows him to throw off platform and get some of these throws in. So it is really nice to kind of see all of this together. And it's nice to see an offense kind of like take advantage of a quarterback's strengths in ways that you wouldn't necessarily, or like second order effects. Like you wouldn't necessarily expect it. Like, what does a strong arm mean? Well, a strong arm means you can throw off platform. Well, what does that mean? Well, that means you might be able to scramble a little bit more in the pocket. Well, if that's true, then you can run routes a little bit further downfield, which allows that quarterback to take advantage of all of those strengths together and create explosives. I think the Vikings like lead the league in explosive play percentage. This is one reason why.
Yeah, and they have for a while. So the sequence at the end of this game, where the Packers have now, scored, brought the game all the way back to 27-25. The Vikings have the ball, 2:18. Packers have all 3 timeouts. That's 2 first downs and you're done. And the Vikings ran 3 rollouts. They ran the ball once in that situation and 3 play-action rollouts. Kevin O'Connell was just asked about this, and he said, I felt comfortable with Sam in those moments. That's trusting Darnold. And look, I'm not going to defend that. That's a spicy choice. That's aggressive. But hey, it did work. So I guess you get to have your flowers on that. And that's why they're doing that they do feel like, yeah, he can make that happen, including like a kind of flip it up on a little bit of a messy rollout situation to Cam Akers, who makes the crazy awkward catch to finish that. If that thing hits the turf, this looks exactly like the Lions game, which we will preview a little bit coming up next, as well as let's do a little, not even Monday morning quarterbacking, Sunday evening quarterbacking, and shout out some unsung heroes. That'll be coming right up here on the Locked On Vikings postcast. All right, let's get hindsighty. Ron, for the coaching corner, this is something Luke loves to do on these postcasts. Give me something that you were thinking about from a coaching perspective, whether it was a 4th down decision, whether it was a play calling thing, a schematic thing, a timeouts thing. What are you thinking?
So the Packers first going for it on 4th down, that one to me, I get it. Like you're on the road and you're taught to like go for it and you got to put pressure on the Vikings. I wouldn't have done it in that situation early in the game. The other one for me, though, is the play action to C.J. Ham to start the drive.
Yeah, what a move.
That was hot.
What a move.
C.J. Ham
game.
Highlights.
Yeah, for your
Shout
game,
out, James.
Basically. Because if he drops that, you don't go into the 2-minute warning. So now the Packers get an additional timeout and clock stoppage. So that was ballsy. Like that to me, for a guy that only had 1 catch before that the entire game, hadn't played much in the game. But it's funny, I got a chance to interview Jason McKee, former, Super Bowl player. They didn't win, but we played for the Bears, fullback for the Bears. And I asked him about C.J. Ham because C.J. was on my mind. I'm like, hey, man, like when you're a fullback who, whether you're in the offense a lot or you're not, because it changes week to week, how do you stay involved? And he said, man, he was honest. He's like, man, it's tough. He's like, I'm not going to lie. He said, when you're sitting there for 2 drives and you haven't touched the field and, you're the only thing you've done is run down on kickoff maybe or be on punt or punt return. He was like, man, it's tough sometimes mentally to like just want to stay in the game, like and not want to go eat orange peels or oranges and want to go grab stuff. He's like, you got to stay watching. And Ham and I love that from Burrito Bill, Captain Ham. Like that is the reason why he's a team captain. He is a leader. He is a guy that they can count on. And I love that call. Like that for me, that was a huge call and a lot of trust in CJ too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What do you think, Arif?
Love all of that. I super wish I could shout out Cam Robinson because aside from 2 really significant mistakes, he had a great game.
The whole line, man. Oh my God.
Yeah.
That was killing him. And I think they killed him in the last Packers game too.
Yeah. So I mean, that's nice. I wanted to like isolate the offensive line did a great job. I don't know if this is an unsung hero because when you show up in the box score like this, people will talk about you. But Jalen Nailor's big day. Love to see it. We saw a ton of attention being paid to Justin Jefferson. The Vikings have been really good all year finding ways to take advantage of the extra attention given to Justin Jefferson. I think the Packers overcorrected for the fact that they didn't have Jair Alexander for this game. They were like freaking out about this. And so they put more eyes on Jefferson than typical. So you've got Jefferson running these underneath routes, and that allows Jalen Nailor to get open and split the safeties without anybody looking at him touchdown, right? Like, there were a bunch of big plays for Nailor that were a big part of this. And, of course, the Packers, having watched film, have noticed that Jordan Addison gets these big games when Justin Jefferson gets this extra attention. Seems like they had a plan for that. And it sounds like, that they didn't consider the Vikings do other receivers. The Vikings do trust those other receivers a lot. Jalen Nailor is one of them. So I think that he definitely deserves a shout out for what he was able to do there. We just mentioned Cam Akers, huge unsung hero, I think, in this game. Harrison Phillips had, I think, a really good game. The broadcast, I think, only said his name once, and that's when he got dragged somehow by Josh Jacobs, which credit to
that
Josh
was gnarly.
That's nuts.
That was not a good one.
But that was not. But the rest of what Harrison Phillips was really good. I promise. So I want to put that out there because the Packers do love to rely on Jacobs in this iteration of their offense. And
before I get out of here, though, too, I do want to say, I'll get mine before I get out of here because I got to go. Before I get out of here, I do want to say my other unsung hero, I got to go with, so that was my coach's corner. I got to go with Blake Cashman. I feel like Blake Cashman
great game.
Was flying around the field. Like, it was kind of cool to see him. Of course, a Gopher. I'm a little biased, but just cool to see him in so many plays, him and Van Ginkel getting to the quarterback. I don't know who actually got the sack. I think Van Ginkel might have got credit for the sack. I don't know if they gave him a half. I haven't looked at the official stats yet. But I know Van Ginkel got to the quarterback and Blake was right there. And then a couple of times Blake was getting in. So it was fun to see him fly around the field. And a lot of times the linebackers, if they don't have big time, 17 tackles, they're not getting a lot of shout outs. So you have a good one, and looking forward to this Lions game next week.
Absolutely. We will get to that in a little bit. Thanks for coming in, Ron. So we will get to that in a little bit. But for my unsung hero, I do want to shout out the massive Dallas Turner sack in a moment where the like in the middle of that comeback, putting a bit of a stop on that. But mine was going to be Cam Akers with Aaron Jones going out. Kevin O'Connell said it was a quad contusion. That was what he was dealing with. Also said that Pat Jones got a right knee injury and is expected to miss some time, which in Kevin O'Connell's ever optimistic language probably means he's going to be out for I would anticipate the rest. Maybe he comes back deep in the playoffs if they get that far.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. The duration. Cause there's a world where the season lasts 2 more weeks and the world where the season lasts like 6 more weeks. So depending on how things go. But I guess let's take a quick peek before we get out of here. Let's take a quick peek because now here's the situation. It's very simple. What happens on Monday Night Football with the Lions and the 49ers is completely irrelevant. I wouldn't even be surprised to see the Lions start pulling players early in that one. I don't think Dan Campbell's going to fully sit guys, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see Hendon Hooker at halftime. But because now it doesn't matter. Whatever happens in that game. And then the Vikings go to Ford Field, play the Lions, number 1 seed on the line for the winner, and the loser gets the number 5 seed and travels to, we'll go with Tampa, maybe Atlanta, depends on what happens elsewhere. That one will almost certainly get flexed to Sunday Night Football. I can't imagine it not getting flexed to Sunday Night Football. But what should we be looking for in that one, Arif?
Sorry,
real early look ahead.
Next week's game, not the 49ers preview that we're going to get.
No, next week's Vikings-Lions game. We don't care about this one now against the 49ers. Well, I will be making liberal use of prize picks to keep myself engaged.
I am in a championship match in one of my fantasy leagues, and I do have Jared Goff starting, so I'm a little upset that I did not 5D chess this out when I set my lineup. But... See
that, but that's what we got to have. But for the next week, early look ahead. What are we thinking about keys to that one, things to watch?
Well, I think what the Vikings need to spend a lot of their time doing is figuring out how the Lions generate their pass rush plan. Right, they've been doing it for half the season without Aiden Hutchinson. Mm-hmm. They've been doing it really successfully. They've been doing it as they continue to pile up injuries with that unit. And obviously, we're going to see Darius Smith, come back. It's great. But I think that is right. That's going to be the key. Is the Lions are really, really effective, and people talk all the time about Ben Johnson's offense, and that's fair. Great offense, great offensive design, great offensive coordinator. But I think that the fact that the Lions continue to generate really excellent pass rush without who was playing as the best pass rusher in the NFL this year, Aiden Hutchinson, really forces us to take a look at how they do that, what the pass rush plans are, how exactly they come up with these solutions to a bunch of different offensive lines with different strengths and weaknesses, and continue to put pressure on the quarterback. So the key, I think, is how that Vikings offensive line, how the protection unit, including Aaron Jones, who's hopefully healthy, and Sam Darnold, how all of them together can put together a plan for what the Lions try to do there, because the Lions have like 14 guys. I haven't counted 14 guys on injured reserve. It might be 6. It feels like 14.
It's more. It's like 18 now. It's literally, it's like a third of their roster. It's insane.
Yeah. And a lot of it's in the front 7. A lot of it's in the front 7. And that matchup should be a win for the Vikings, but it should have been a win for a ton of teams that it has not been a win for. And so how the offensive line matches up against this group of like misfit toys, basically, is I think going to be the key to the game.
Yeah, it's like a lot of Zadarius Smith type guys. There's like a couple other Zadarius Smith type guys that there's like a Quan Alexander showing up. It's like a graveyard of people that they've like pulled off the street to try to like piecemeal this thing together, but it has held together. I don't have it in front of me, but I think like over the last like 6 or 7 weeks, their like rush EPA per play has still been one of the best in the league. So they're still finding a way. But here is something from this one that I feel like kind of translates. You go into a game against the Packers. The Packers are famously physical, and I feel like the Vikings really out-physicaled them. And that's why this went so extremely the way it did for so much of it until we got into drop 8 nonsense. And to get into that against now a Dan Campbell coach team, although a whole bunch of players that are kind of subbing in for that, you're going to have to go out physical them again to go win that, or else you got to go on the road and play wild card weekend. I feel like that's going to be a really important thing to get that those early downs going. And like in this game, the Vikings had so many lovely first down runs for 7, 6 yards that then set them up for better opportunities in second and third down to hit either explosives or just keep the chains moving easily. Those have to happen. That said, the Vikings only run it like 15 times a game. So it's still not going to come down to that. It's going to come down to, like it always does, how aggressive does Sam Darnold, and it's like Price is Right style.
We're on the meter.
How close can he get without going over?
Turning the dial that says aggressiveness, looking back at the audience.
The audience like Price is Right. Yeah. Yeah. And then looking back and seeing that Keyshawn Nixon has picked it off. So, look, other than that one, we'll get that. You get that one once every 2 months, okay? We can get over one of those every couple of months because he's been really safe with it outside of that, and then a dumb one in the Monday night game that was actually good because it was 4th down, and actually ended up being like good for field position. So it's just insane to see what Darnold has done, to see what these Vikings have done, considering what they were supposed to do. They are now 14-2. Looking at either 15-2 or 14-3 and rocking it into the playoffs. Any final closing thoughts? Because we have a minute here, Arif.
Open your heart, be vulnerable, let the Vikings hurt you, because it's the only way you're going to experience joy in the next couple of weeks. I think the price is worth that value. I think you got to buy in.
Yeah. If the Vikings are willing to take all these risks, so should your heart. I can't imagine if this is the one, if this is the season, not enjoying it at all until it's already over because you were too scared to. Can't imagine doing that. Not with Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores closing their eyes and calling shot plays in 4-minute drills. You can't do. That's not who this team is. Okay. For Ron Johnson, for Arif Hasan, I'm Luke Braun. Thank you so much for tuning into the Locked On Vikings postcast. We will break all of this down. The two of us, and Sam and Luke, will be on the Minnesota football party tomorrow morning here on Locked On Minnesota Sports, and I'll of course have Locked On Vikings up for you every day this week. It's real now. It's time for the Lions game. Time for the thing we've been staring at for the last 2 months. It's here. We made it. They did it. Game time. All right. Bye-bye, everybody.